Welcome to Residential Tech Talks. I'm Jeremy Glowacki, Executive Editor of Residential Tech Today. On this week's podcast, Heather Sidorowicz joins us from Hamburg, New York, where she is owner of Southtown Audio Video, Western New York's premier audiovisual company. Heather is a Residential Tech Today contributing writer, former CEDIA board member, and most importantly, a good friend for many years. Today, during her third Residential Tech Talks appearance, Heather is here to share her favorite discoveries from last week's InfoComm trade show, a convention that is primarily focused on the commercial AV integration market. InfoComm is a great place for integration companies like Heather's who do light commercial installations as well as home projects to learn about new products and technologies that, yes, will fit into commercial market-oriented projects, but also might someday find their way into high-end homes as well. Heather is also our resident health tech wearables reporter, so we will also catch up on her latest experiences with that tech as well, if we have time. Heather Sidorowicz, welcome back to the podcast.
It's the trifecta. Thank you for having me.
That's right. Our friend John Siaka is going to get jealous because you're nearing, I think, his record for appearances, which isn't a huge record, but you know.
Hey, I'll compete with John all day.
That's exactly. Well, so while you were at InfoComm in blazing hot Las Vegas last week, I lived vicariously through your photos on social media. So I didn't have to be there myself. That's my favorite type of trade show. I saw that you're actually mixing business and pleasure. You went to the Sting concert this weekend.
Yeah, we call that leisure, right? So we're mixing business and pleasure now, because if you're going to go through the travel woes these days, you got to have a little bit of fun.
That's a good way to put it, for sure. Travel and business and leisure, travel and leisure. So you also had your husband Brian with you, I saw, and which you share some of that tech experience and career as well. So it's not just him tagging along; he's there for his own insights as well. And I was wondering, it's either more relaxing to have your husband there or more stressful? You can never tell which it's going to be. Is he a good travel mate when it comes to trade shows?
He's an excellent travel mate. So I've been to so many of these InfoComms alone. And actually, Jeremy, years ago, I remember you and I in Orlando having dinner together at like this resort, but it was just a hotel at the time because we were at InfoComm together. And I think that was one of the only dinners I had. I was just completely alone, even though you were surrounded by thousands and thousands of people. So it was really nice to have somebody around as well. So both my husband went and also my engineer programmer went as well. So it was, we had a little bit of a party, and we also got a lot of business done.
Well, that's great. Yeah. That's the best kind of travel mate, is where you can just avoid those lonely moments, have someone to share booth visits with, kind of work off each other a little bit, maybe catch up.
Split up when needed. So he actually got his CPS certification. So gold star for him.
Yeah, very good. And I'm jealous of that concert. We had Sting in town here recently, and I could not get tickets. It was like sold out instantly. So how did that happen?
It was actually our friend Katie McGregor Bennett, who, when she was the one that realized that concert had both been postponed twice. And so she texted me and said, hey, there's tickets still left. Do you want to go? And without a doubt, I said yes before I asked my husband. And it was a great way to cap off InfoComm because it was just pitch perfect audio. So although he was playing for thousands, it felt like he was playing for you. Of course, it was combined with amazing video projection and video walls, and all those pieces come together. And it goes, yeah, this is why I do this.
That's awesome. And what venue was that, by the way?
It was at Caesars at the Forum.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's the space that Celine Dion had built, I believe, years ago, and was kind of her exclusive space. And then Jerry Seinfeld was in there, and there's some other things. So that's a really good venue, I'm told. So I'm jealous of the Sting concert. What I'm not jealous of was that you were on a panel. Don't like panels personally. They're a necessary ingredient in a trade show, but they make me get migraines. So, but you, on the other hand, I think probably eat that stuff up.
I had a ball.
Yeah. So Sony was the host. What did you guys talk about on that panel?
So it was an AV integration panel. So Sony kind of played the game a little bit differently this year. It's just their booth with all their products and magic black boxes. And of course they have beautiful displays. But this year they had a stage, and they had from beginning to end of InfoComm, all sorts of different tech talks, which I thought that was a nice play on words there, and panels to help whoever it was out there, was education or integrators. So I was asked to be on this panel, and I was on with really big, fancy companies. So I was definitely intimidated, and I wouldn't say that I intimidate easily, but I was 100% intimidated. I will say that everybody on the panel was amazing, and once I got up there, there was no egos, and everybody was amazing and worked off each other. And it really was to help on how we can deal with these global problems that we're all having. So me at a smaller company, we're having the same issues that these multi-million-dollar companies are having, which is getting product and supply chain issues and employment issues and keeping great people. So it was a really good conversation, and I felt like I was in class because I got to take away some stuff as well.
Well, that's really great. It does kind of get your brain warmed up, and you're dealing with those questions getting lobbed at you, and I'm sure you represented very well. And a lot of those companies that are at InfoComm are these huge commercial integration companies. So that's not a surprise that you might end up on a panel with some of those folks. And you're more along the lines of your typical residential AV integration company size, although you do a lot of commercial work. So
yeah, we do more commercial than residential, but yeah. So it was a really fun play.
Yeah. So, and before you hit the show floor though, and you we're kind of jumping around a little bit here, but you also had the opportunity while you're in Vegas to go to the Savant Vegas Modern, I don't even know how to say it out loud. I've only written it 001 demo home. And I've done a virtual tour of that space. We published an article about it a few issues back, but amazingly modern, as its name implies.
It was
space.
I've been to some fancy houses in my lifetime. Nothing compares to this house.
Yeah. So tell like, what's it like? You walk in, you're like immediately surrounded by like water and fountains and stuff like that, or what?
The outside is the inside, and the inside is the outside. So there's this amazing blend of in and out. Those water features everywhere that actually help cool the house. So sometimes you almost can't tell where you are and if you're actually inside or outside. And so it's a completely different take. From an AV perspective, the audio is on point and perfectly tuned from any space you are in, from the bathroom to the main room to outside. The audio was always, when in some places or restaurants, as you walk through, it may fade and be a little bit quieter, and then it may go up in volume. This is just on point wherever you were in the space. And it was just done extremely well. And it was a really neat connection to how you could take commercial AV and apply it to high-end residential. The home theater is one of the most beautiful I've seen. It was walls of glass, but it was mounted from the ground up, a direct view LED wall with hidden speakers. It was Adobe Atmos system. It was powered by Kaleidoscape. And oh my goodness, I could have just laid there and stayed there all day.
Yeah, and that is a great example of where that InfoComm tech does sort of quote unquote trickle down into residential, really on the high end right now. But that direct view LED, where you're seeing giant video walls that don't have any kind of glass per se. It's not like it's a big.
Right, it's a matte finish, so there's no reflection. None.
Yeah, and so you'd first kind of see those applied in, I guess, lobbies of big office buildings and other really cool commercial spaces. But then now some of the high-end homes are starting to see these panels get installed. I mean, you're like floor to ceiling giant spaces like you're describing there. And that Vegas Modern space is going to kind of be a temporary opportunity for Savant. From what I understand, they're going to actually eventually
There's
sell
not much time left. I think a few weeks or a few months, maybe it's 4 months left.
Oh, wow.
Apparently they were going to not sell it for a while, but somebody came in and they made an offer they couldn't refuse.
Wow.
So that owner is actually leasing the space back for the time being. To allow for these tours. However, I've also heard during that tour that they've broken ground on their next house. So how they're going to top this, I don't know. All the doors, the sliding glass doors are all mechanical. So with the touch of a button, they're opening because, opening doors are really difficult to do. So we definitely need technology to do that. All I thought was, after a glass or two of wine, I was going to walk into one of those glass things without doing it. And B, they would have these beautiful stones with water all around it. So I'd probably trip and fall in as well. But
yeah,
it looked really, really pretty.
Yeah. I I mean, I know it was like 120 degrees there, and it's just not a livable place in the summer in Vegas. But those indoor outdoor houses, since I don't know, 20, maybe 15 years ago, I was at a Lutron house like that. And that was in the early days of lighting technology and outdoor lighting. And that was just amazing. And then you get this outdoor living that, yeah, you're right. You can almost not tell when you're inside and outside when it's a nice, dry, mild day.
That's the thing. You'd have to be a little bit of a voyeur with all that glass. All I kept
Oh,
thinking is,
yeah.
like, who's looking in with binoculars from somewhere? Like,
Right.
as you're walking around your glass, beautiful, perfect house.
That's a good point. Yeah. So, and it's interesting that house went for sale so quickly that they couldn't refuse because, I mean, the market is just so crazy right now. They had to jump on that. Well, great stuff. And I do want to jump into what you saw on the show floor at InfoComm. So you're, like you said, you're mostly commercial focused as a company, even though you write for us on the resi side. What is your mix these days as far as like commercial versus residential, would you say?
Approximately 85% commercial, about 15% residential.
Wow, it's gotten up there.
And this went from 100% residential 10 years ago. So it really has grown on the commercial side. And I think that it's our market is part of that story. But yeah, my heart, there will always have a place with that residential piece, that I love that. Well, as we talk about all the time, probably on all these podcasts, is about technology that can make life better. Yeah. And that's always where my articles kind of go. And it gives me a different perspective when I look at any of these things. So our last podcast that we did when I was at KeyBiz was as a residential person, because I do, and with the connection to the writing. So I could say to these manufacturers, like, let's have technology that makes it better, not just sends me an email or a text message. Have the washer also be a dryer. Why can't we do that yet?
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm always kind of watching out for those kind of things. And it's true on the commercial side too. It should make your meetings better. Technology you should not walk into a meeting on the commercial space either and it not work or be frustrating. Now, it's not a perfect science, so of course that will happen. But the concept is that it should be the big phrase that was thrown around a lot was meeting equity. And meeting equity is like if we're apart like we are right now, but it's like we're together. So if we can do that one-on-one, how do we do that in a meeting space? Right. And technology is not quite there yet, and we're keep trying, and that's why the show is really fun to go to. But it's really interesting to see it progress each year.
Well, so give us a sense of what your types of commercial projects are, and maybe a little bit about why Buffalo, Niagara area tends to be a better commercial AV integration market for you than maybe residential. Is it older homes that aren't being updated, and there's offices being built, or how's that, or the education part of it too?
Yeah, little known fact. So Buffalo was actually, I think it's either the second richest or the richest city in the country in 1900. We were the city of light. We were the second or first city to get power. And until since then, 1900, we were a steel city, a Rust Belt city, and when the steel went away, our city kind of fell. And in the last 10 years or so, it started to experience a renaissance. So there's the $1 billion was brought to Buffalo, New York, and we have a great medical center that has been built and continues to evolve. So as that all started happening, it was the same time that Amazon was gaining traction and Walmart was opening down the street, and TV purchases went from this very emotional purchase to, oh, there's a deal over at Target, so I got it with my toilet paper. So to kind of see that shifting, we just started to shift with it. And there wasn't a ton of competition in the Buffalo market. The part that we underestimated at the time was because we were residentially focused, which meant we were client focused. We doubled our sales. So I bought the company in 2014. We doubled our sales in 2015 just because commercial clients too are relationship centric and wanted someone to call them back and be there for them. Not like an electrician that once it works, you don't necessarily ever have to see them ever again.
Right.
Technology, it will break at some point. So you need to have that relationship base. So we started to grow in that market and then just continued down that road. And
so are you working on those medical types of buildings?
Oh yeah, so cool projects. So we work with a local cancer center. We do a bunch of offices and rooms for them, and they're an amazing client. But I always like to have some kind of fun projects as well. So this year we're working on a brewery that's opening up about 15 minutes away from our home base. But this is not like your typical brewery. It's a very large space, and it's going to actually have some really cool audio in it. So Yamaha makes a speaker with Nexo, which is a French company. So they're going to have some Nexo speakers in there, and they would like the technology to actually be hidden, so it's not technology focused. So that's a really cool relationship we have with them. So someday you'll have to come up and we'll get a beer over there. So we always like to do some kind of cool. So we do some live event spaces like that. Last year we did a different space called the Powerhouse, which is an event center and a rental house. And we are on lifts 40 feet up in the air. We did a bunch of acoustics with Oralex that year, and also Yamaha speakers at that time. So our mix is healthcare, education, mostly higher education. We work with the University of Buffalo a lot. Corporate, I'm going to miss one, residential, and immersive technology. So we also work with some different museums locally. We're doing one in Erie, PA coming up, and we just help combine those technologies to make that experience better as well.
So you go to InfoComm, and you're there for maybe reporter, editor type insights. What's that?
Depending on what booth I'm in, I put whichever one on front.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And so, but in addition to that badge of honor, you also are there for your business, and primarily probably for your business. But what you kind of gave me a little insight via email today, what you saw that might be good for topics of discussion. One of them you said was software solutions for hardware issues. So explain to me what you meant by that.
So right now on control systems, we're seeing back order statuses into next year. So that's, people have been amazing and patient on waiting for equipment. But when we're seeing things into March or May of next year, that's a different story. So we're starting to hear of different software solutions that you can spin up on servers for control. And that's still on a high end commercial, but I could definitely see that coming down to a resi level at some point. Same thing with processors. So beamforming mics have processors that go along with them. We're seeing like a company like Shure who has a software that does that instead of the hardware piece. So I'm going to say that's even more techy than I can. That's as far as I can go in the technical. I have great, brilliant people for that. But it's a really interesting piece that we're kind of at this point that it may not be just the magic black box. It might just be the magic non-black box that we're able to sell and put forth.
Right. And that supply chain difficulty, I know was a topic of conversation there at the show for sure.
Oh, like it was the number one topic.
Yeah. And so are you hearing any hope on the horizon? It sounds like no, we're still like deep into next year before we start to see some
deep into next year. I mean, so I think that the only hope on the horizon is the ability to source some equipment elsewhere. So I kind of described it as you have the king of the hills who are sitting pretty and, like, oh, you'll be fine. I actually had one say to me, we don't have an inventory problem. We have a sales problem, which I'll just leave it there. So at the show, you could find other manufacturers who are making similar products who could play part of that back end. And that if you found those products, those could slot in to help fill the void.
Right. So other cool stuff that you saw, you mentioned something about LG and some robots. What was that all about?
So LG brought 3 different robots to the show, and it looks kind of like the robots from the Jetsons. Well, not so animated. One was a wayfinding robot so that it would help you get to where you needed to go. So the idea is you walk into the hospital and it's 17 stories, and it could actually guide you, bring you there. Another one was supposed to have the ability to bring your food out. So I go to the restaurant, maybe I order on my iPad, and then my food shows up on a tray from the robot. And the third one was, for disinfecting. So, with the whole COVID thing, if whatever the next thing is, and we don't want to send people in there, throw the robot in there, and then they can do the disinfecting of the different spaces. So it's kind of interesting. That's always a fun stuff to see. LG did, their booth was really neat. They broke that out into different centers that way. So they broke out into a residential, you had like a residential pod in there, and it did have a direct view LED wall in that space as well. So they're really even trying to show that this is possible, and that this is something that people are doing.
So you mentioned how Sony had kind of a stage as part of their main booth, and I know that in some recent trade shows, like CES in particular, that they had to really go with more of a virtual presence at these things because they were not allowed to travel, especially these international companies and Asian companies. Were you seeing that the booths had altered because of the COVID times a lot, or had it kind of gone back to where like an LG, where that's just always all kinds of eye candy everywhere with all the visuals?
It was, it was not. So there were no masks. I mean, the masks were not required at the show.
Right.
You had maybe about 1% of the people who were there that wore them. But no, these things, I mean, when you walked in, and there's always the big Crestron booth. I believe I heard that was one of their largest booths ever.
Okay.
It was wall to wall of people. And people are watching on Twitter. People are definitely seeing they're getting some positive COVID results at this point.
Yeah.
But people were shaking hands and kissing babies, and it was like old times. And I think that people just wanted to be back so badly.
Yeah.
And of course, so it happened.
It happened. Yeah. So far, so good for you. You're feeling okay, which is great. So well, and so to wrap up, I think some of the InfoComm talk, and then we'll take a quick break and go to Wearables. But Leon, you mentioned one of my favorite companies. Anywhere I go, if I can find Leon, I'm happy to chat with them. Agreed. So what was this Liquid View?
This thing was so cool. So anyone that's talked about biophilia, so there you heard that phrase in the past. We spend 90% of our time indoors these days. And it's really bad for our circadian rhythms, which just means it's bad for your health. So Leon and Liquid View have this collaboration that there's a panel hung in portrait mode, and you can have a frame around it to look like a window. And what they did is they filmed 24 hours of content in all these amazing, beautiful places. And it goes along with the time of day. So if I get to work at 6 a.m. and the sun's just coming up, and my office does not have a window, but if I had that here, I would see the sun coming up as we were talking and having this podcast, or the sun going down at the end of the day. So it gives you that effect. And there's been some studies done. Now, I didn't actually hear this from Leon, but I had heard it previously with discussions about biophilia, that this is really good for you, just to see that motion happening. And my favorite part is that they just took it a little step further, that if you really did pay attention, a pterodactyl would go by, or an elephant was going down the beach. There was a unicorn. So if you're really paying attention, they had thrown some really cute, funny things in this space. And I think that this one was in California is what they were showing at the show. But what a cool concept. And of course, that can work for your office, but we're working from home all the time now. So if you're stuck in your basement, and you're, a C-level person, or whoever you are, wherever you are, how cool would that to, in the dead of winter, it could be Hawaii that you're looking at your window at.
Yeah. And think about integrating the lighting control as well, so that you're getting that same lighting effect. Yeah. That would be amazing. And I think it's like that hotel in Orlando at Disney that's the Star Wars theme hotel. Like, I can't imagine ever staying there even for one night. I think my chest would collapse because I'd just feel so freaked out that I'm only surrounded by panels. I know it's not a window. I can't fake, because I know we're not in outer space. They can't trick me. But I think I could be tricked into a beautiful outdoor sunny scene. That would
just calm, make you feel better.
For sure. Yeah. I love the sound of that. So Leon's great at taking other technologies and making them even cooler with blending them with their own frames and audio components and all that. So real quick, what was so Liquid View clearly is kind of like, is that more of a content provider? Or
I should know the answer to this better, but I don't. I have the press release on it, but I haven't we just got back, so I haven't really dug down deep. I just know that was a collaboration between the two.
And was there an audio component on that you recall, or was it
I don't believe so, but
it was
it's neon, and audio is certainly at their roots, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, but they're also really good at framing things up and really creating custom.
It would be very custom. Yeah, they had a speaker as well that they had connected with an artist, and so you could buy this beautifully mandala. Obviously, the sound is hidden, and it becomes a piece of art at the same time.
Right. Yes, that I'm familiar with. That's a really great development as well. But we'll get stuff on InfoComm. After the break, we will continue our conversation with Heather Sidorowicz, and we'll talk more wearables and home health tech.
Do you want superior smart home automation at a great value? Shelly Wi-Fi relays by Alterco Robotics cover DC to line voltage, allowing you to control lights, outlets, appliances, garage doors, pumps, and much more. There are Shelly sensors and power measurement devices to help you measure temperature, humidity, lux, or motion, and electrical consumption from single wire to 3-phase with neutral. You can use Shelly with a licensed driver for Control 4, Elon, or other premium systems, as well as your customer's existing hub, voice assistant, or any platform that accepts REST, MQTT, or CoAP. Shelly can make IoT very easy. Available now at Blackwire, City Electric Supply, and Worthington, or at shellyusa.com.
Welcome back. We're talking with Southtown AV's Heather Sidorowicz. Okay, Heather, so we've done InfoComm, and I wasn't even there, and I'm tired, but let's talk wearables. This is one that's near and dear to your heart. It kind of is one of these in-between categories. It's not really residential tech, but you're often using these things in the home. So I like to touch on it just because I think a lot of our readers probably are into what's the latest gadget, as well as things that go into the home itself. So you recently wrote about I believe you pronounce it Oura ring. Is that?
Yes, which I'm still wearing. So it always means something that if I'm still wearing it after I've written the article, that it really is affecting your life.
Yeah. So talk about what the Oura ring does. If those who so this one's coming out.
It has sensors on it that's always constantly monitoring your heart rate, your temperature, your movement. So it gives you a really good barometer as to how you're actually feeling. And my very favorite thing about Oura versus other wearables is it also tells you when to slow down. So you're at Vegas and you maybe went to a party and maybe had too much to drink, and then you probably didn't sleep really great. When you get up the next day, it would give you it would say your activity level, like, chill out today, bring it down a notch. Of course you can't, because you've got the whole show to do. But it actually does tell you, like, hey, I noticed your heart rate was elevated last night. You might not be feeling well, or maybe a cold is coming. Well, no, it's because I drank my body's worth of alcohol last night. That's why I didn't feel good. So yeah, it's constantly monitoring you, and it sometimes knows that you're getting ill before that you do, because these things happen at such a minute level. So like when we talk about temperatures, right? We just went through COVID. We've taken our temperature more in the last 2 years than ever before in our life. The ring actually is monitoring your temperature mostly at night, because your temperature can change, a million times during the day. If I'm outside in the sun, it's going to be warmer than if I'm somewhere with crazy air conditioning. So it's always kind of monitoring your health. They've just added on also the ability to use your heart rate. You can track your heart rate during a workout. So you're actually it's not just how long the workout is so that you're completing a goal, but how you're working out overall. How high did it get? Maybe you were in a danger zone or a not great zone. I like that they're constantly updating it so that you feel like you're getting more's worth out of it. After a certain amount of time, I can't remember how many months off the top of my head, though, you pay a monthly fee of a few bucks. I think that anytime you do that, you want to feel like you're getting something out of that.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's a much more comfortable wearable as well. Like, I had an Apple Watch for a while, and I kind of just got to the point where I didn't want it buzzing on my wrist.
It felt, and also if you charge it and then forget it. This lasts about a week without a charge. So I left for Vegas on a Monday. I came back Saturday evening. I never had to charge it the whole time I was there. So that I had to charge it by the time I got home, and it takes, an hour or two to charge. I really like that aspect about it. I think if you're going to have a wearable, it's got to be something that doesn't take away from your quality of life, or, if you're charging it every night, then that's an annoyance. That's not helpful.
Yeah.
And this is actually when you say that you want it, when you go to purchase it, the first thing they do is they send you a ring sizer, so they make sure that you get the right fit. And then once you choose the fit, then they send the ring, and they have some different colors and stuff to choose from, and you can get fancy with it. But it's a different take from the wearable category. So I really enjoy it.
And has it given you any indications of when you haven't been feeling well? Has it given you a preview of, oh no, you're getting sick? And
yes. So it gives you a rating each day for your readiness rating. And actually, I talk about that in the article, is that after KBIS, our last time that we spoke, I did come down with COVID, and it knew before I did. So it actually, before I had tested, my readiness score that day dropped down to something like in the 40s. And I still thought I was kind of okay, but it was about a day later that I didn't feel well. And then I took a test and eventually got the positive. But I could kind of watch that as well and know, like, I knew that I kind of was being monitored. So I knew that I wasn't in danger. It was almost like having, it was a quality piece of someone was kind of watching out for me. I knew that if something was like, there was an alert, that when people talk about going to the hospital, I didn't have any of those bad symptoms, but it was kind of nice to have that there to say, okay, I really am okay. I also really like that the sleep doesn't just say, hey, you slept for 6 hours last night. It tells you how much REM sleep, how much light sleep, how much did you toss and turn, what was your movement. So you can really start to check that out too, and then make shifts to your life. I've noticed that, if you have too much wine or drink, your temperature will be up and you won't sleep as well. Yeah. You kind of all know that, but then all of a sudden you start to go like, maybe I won't say yes that next glass, or it starts. That is true what wellness should be.
Mm-hmm. Well, and related to that, a piece that article is going to be in our summer print issue, which is going to be out in a few weeks. I've had it for a while. Sorry about that. It's taken a while to get that issue out. But the Calm app is your current online piece that folks can read right now. So I've heard about the Calm app. They advertise a lot on podcasts, and I've been curious about it and got to kind of hear your perspective on it. You recently reconnected with it to kind of get just chilled out a bit, and maybe that helps with your ring as well, your Aura ring feedback. But so what have you liked about that Calm app so far?
Calm app is really meditation centric. There's some other really cool parts about it. And I think meditation's like this woo-woo term. It's we think, I don't know how to, and my brain is always going a mile a minute. I recently had some medical stuff come up, and I own a business, and all these things are happening. That's what made me dive back into the Calm app, because the ways that I was dealing with stress, which was yoga and running, I had to pull back from. Mm-hmm. And as a person who can sit still very well, that's what made me kind of make the jump into the Calm app. And it's not a silver bullet, but it is definitely helpful. So you don't need huge chunks of time. You don't need to sit there for an hour, but 6, 12, 13 minutes, any of us can really find that amount of time to sit there. And it's such a great reminder just to be present, to not worry about what's tomorrow, an hour from now. And I do that. I do that all the time. It just is this constant reminder every time you do it. It also has some other features, some great music and things to kind of fall asleep to. I noticed that when I get a song in my head, I can actually turn that on. It will help with that. I don't know if anybody else has that issue where they can hear that song all night long.
Yeah.
But it does help with that as well. And there's some daily ones so you don't have to go in search of something to do. You could just, every day there's a few different ones you can choose from, and it will just kind of bring it to you. So you don't have to look out or say, I have to meditate, or you don't have to think about it. It takes that part out of it.
Right. And to wrap up, I know you previewed something you're working on for our fall issue, our CEDIA issue. Can you give us a little teaser of what it is that you're looking forward to writing about next?
Yeah, it's not a wearable. It's something you get into and it goes vroom, vroom with no gas.
All right. That's great. All right. Well, we'll look forward to that. I'm not going to make you give any spoilers at this point, but I would say that there's a high percentage of our audience that is into vehicular.
It's one of the coolest things ever. I'm really excited about it.
High-tech automotive related something. So we'll go there and give folks something to look forward to. But I think we've covered a lot here, and I appreciate you taking the time out. I didn't bug you while you were at the show this time like I did at KBiz. I wanted to give you a chance to breathe and think about it a little bit.
It's good. The internet's way better here.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you get a chance to recuperate and get some of the alcohol out of your bloodstream. And I hope that you have a great rest of 2022. I will see you next in Dallas at CEDIA Expo. I'm sure that'll probably be our next spot.
Absolutely.
Thanks for taking the time out today and chatting with me, Heather. Great talking to you.
Thank you.
Heather Sidorowicz is a contributing writer to Residential Tech Today and owner of Southtown Audio Video in Hamburg, New York. You can learn more about her company at southtownav.com and read her articles on our magazine's website, restechtoday.com. That wraps up today's show. If you're new to Residential Tech Talks, please subscribe to the weekly podcast on your preferred platform and consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Also, check out all the latest residential tech news at the magazine's website, restechtoday.com, where you can subscribe to the print or digital magazine and to our Tuesday and Friday email newsletters. Until next time, please stay safe, stay inspired, and let us know if you have a great story to tell.
Residential Tech Talk, lighting specialist to architect, residential tech, home automation, smart device, home or smart house.